Welcome to the All Language Resources channel where we review different resources to help you learn a new language. Would you like the chance to try premium resources in exchange for sharing your honest feedback? You can apply to be a tester from the link in the description box. Is Nancy or Momoland biased? Or maybe you're more of a Jewy fan? If this makes sense to you, there's a Korean language app that could be right up your alley. If you're lost, it's okay. Watch this video to discover a whole new world of language learning. Teuida is a Korean learning app that takes a unique approach to language teaching by simulating conversations, including some featuring K-pop star Nancy from Momoland. Users of the app have the opportunity to get lots of speaking practice and feedback on pronunciation through voice recognition technology. This review will look at Teuida's capability as a resource for learning the Korean language. At the end of the video, we will give you the reasons why we give this app an overall rating of 4 out of 5 stars. If you do decide that Teuida is a good fit for you, be sure to check the description box for our exclusive discount code. First off, Teuida means open or open-hearted in Korean. It's also the name of a language learning app that does things a little bit differently. Taking cues from linguist Stephen Krashen, the program favors comprehensible input over learning grammar rules and the alphabet. There's also an emphasis on active engagement with the language, something users would experience almost immediately after opening the app. The trade-off naturally is that the app doesn't provide any instruction in Hangul and there isn't an emphasis on grammar rules or explanations, though you will find some. One of the biggest draws for K-pop fans out there is that Nancy from Momoland is a brand ambassador for Teuida. She seems to excel at the role because she's widely popular and because she's fluent in both English and Korean. Nancy teaches users some basic Korean and stars in a POV-style conversation simulation, which we will show later in this video. Let's take a look at Teuida's layout. The app's design is certainly an area in which it shines. The interface is slick, menu navigation is smooth, and the overall experience has a premium feeling to it. The course is broken up into levels, units, and lessons, all of which we'll look at in detail. There are different levels of material available within the Teuida app. Each level is centered around a general theme and consists of between 6 and 10 units, each covering a specific language objective that's related to the theme. Since levels are the largest category, they take quite a bit of time to work through. Each contains a fair amount of material. If you'd rather not work through the material chronologically, it's also possible to browse lessons by subject matter and skip around as you please. The units that make up the levels each focus on an objective-based language item. These objectives are all things that would likely be almost immediately useful to a beginning learner of Korean, which is great. Okay, expressing love to your K-pop bias may not be at the top of everyone's list of Korean priorities. But most of the units have titles like introducing yourself or thanking and apologizing. Each of these units culminates in a simulated conversation scenario where you'll have to use the language you've learned. You'll get to see a sample of this later on in the video. As mentioned, each unit contains lessons to prepare you for a speaking exercise. There are typically around 4 lessons in each unit, and they each teach a specific phrase that you'll need to use in the unit's speaking exercise. You might consider this the real meat of the resource, as it's where the learning and instruction happen. Teachers help you practice pronunciation with extensive listen and repeat drilling and provide explanations in the way of literal translations and relevant contextual or cultural information.
안녕 means peace or well-being. 하세요 means do you do. So when you say hi in Korean, you're literally saying, are you at peace? Kind of cool, right? Let's try it again.
These extra bits of information and literal translations are crucial in making Teuida more than just a fancy, interactive phrasebook. The literal translations are helpful in giving you a feeling for proper sentence construction and the cultural notes highlight the specific scenarios in which you'd use the phrases you're learning. The lessons are where you'll first encounter the app's voice recognition technology, which is where you'll get feedback on your pronunciation and how you'll complete short quiz questions. This feature is at the center of Teuida's mechanics. After all, the app's tagline is, "Don't just study Korean, speak it." It's an intuitive feature to use. Speak into your phone when prompted and receive an evaluation. You'll see the language you're supposed to say written in Hangul alongside a romanization of the word or phrase. This seems helpful when you're a beginner, but you may find yourself relying heavily on the romanization, ignoring the Hangul, and struggling to recall what you just said without looking at the romanization. Pronunciation feedback comes in the form of a letter grade and the color coding system supposedly based on performance. As with all voice recognition systems, this one isn't perfect. Almost always, you'll either receive an A+ or get the good try message and will be prompted to try again. You may encounter situations where you'll try several times but can't produce an acceptable pronunciation. Then suddenly, you'll receive an A+, totally unsure what you have changed. This feature is not without value though. Users should just probably temper expectations. There does seem to be some accurate evaluation of pronunciation going on, but without detailed, actionable feedback, it's hard to use it to improve. Another element that detracts from the quality of pronunciation practice here is that there isn't any explicit pronunciation instruction, only listening and repeating. For someone who isn't accustomed to making or listening to Korean sounds, it can be difficult to know what to do with your mouth or even what you're hearing. The romanization of Korean is helpful, but you'd be missing the mark by quite a bit if you read it as you would English. Let's move on to the fun part, conversation scenarios. The most engaging activity in Teuida by far is the conversation practice. It's somewhat like a virtual reality experience where you're placed in a scenario and need to hold up your end of the conversation. The videos are high quality and the POV perspective makes for an interesting experience. The camera even nods to your conversation partner and looks around like you might do in such a situation. Overall, you'll be impressed with the conversation experience. Even if it feels bizarre at times, you'll fully be engaged.
처음이에요. 너무 떨린다. 혹시 이름이 뭐예요?
One thing to note is that your conversation partner will say a bunch of stuff that you haven't learned in lessons. You can, of course, follow along with English translations. You can toggle the subtitles for English and Korean on and off, as well as the Hangul and romanization for the speaking prompts. You'll enjoy trying to complete the exercises first without subtitles, trying to infer what was being said, and then with subtitles, checking for understanding. After completing a conversation exercise, you'll receive a sort of report card describing your performance. This report card doesn't seem to be saved anywhere, but it's kind of nice to see how you did. If you're unable to produce a satisfactory phrase within a couple of tries, you'll receive an F. You'll likely enjoy the conversation practice a lot, but the conversations could be shorter and use even more basic language. It would also be nice to have the option to listen to conversations at a slower speed. As it is, hearing so much Korean that hasn't been covered in the lessons has the potential to overwhelm the beginning learner, but it's far from a guarantee. The Teuida app is free to download, but you'll need to purchase a subscription for access to any material beyond the first chapter of every level. It's hard to imagine using this app for 12 months, as there just isn't that much material available. Even if a new unit is released every week, you would be hard-pressed to justify purchasing a year-long subscription, although $5 per month isn't outrageous. You can also find a discount code in the description box below. Teuida takes such an interesting approach to providing language practice that they don't have much, if any, direct competition. For those who are mainly drawn to Teuida by Nancy and an interest in K-pop, consider Margarita's Learn Korean with K-pop playlist on YouTube. She takes popular K-pop songs and breaks down the lyrics in English with a focus on learning the language. It's free. If Teuida is appealing for its oral-verbal focus, it may be worth considering Pimsleur. The platform doesn't offer snazzy videos like Teuida, and there's no AI pronunciation feedback, but there's a lot of listening and speaking practice, and the instruction is more clearly structured. Pimsleur has been around for quite a few years, and its audio courses have a solid reputation. SpeechLink could make an excellent alternative to Teuida for learners who are serious about improving their pronunciation and want to get more detailed feedback than is available with Teuida. This resource allows users to record themselves speaking Korean in order to receive feedback from a real person. It's free to use for a limited number of recordings each month, and the subscription unlocks unlimited recordings. As nifty as Teuida's simulated conversation practice is, it isn't anywhere near a substitute for speaking with a real person. italki is an online directory of language tutors with over 200 teaching Korean. Tutors set their own prices and schedules, so you should be able to find one that works for you. You should also be able to find an appropriate tutor regardless of your level of Korean. There are certainly tutors who are happy to walk beginners through the first stages of learning the language. italki also has a cool free language exchange feature, as well as one that makes it possible to give and receive feedback on writing. If you're not into video lessons but still want to talk to real people, Tandem and Hello Talk are both great language exchange apps with a lot of value. Both apps facilitate convenient language exchange with other learners and make communication easy with built-in language tools. They offer basic functionality for free, but unlimited translations require a subscription. The difference between the apps is largely aesthetic, and both host large communities of language learners. Unless you want to rely on romanization forever, you'll need to learn how to read Hangul at some point. Since Teuida doesn't take the time to teach it, you'll need to look elsewhere. Fortunately, Hangul is pretty straightforward, and there are plenty of ways to learn it. Tengugo and Hangul are two apps that teach the alphabet through flashcards, quizzes, lessons, and even some practice reading material. Finally, if you're someone who appreciates instruction that's detailed and full of explanations, you might enjoy 90-Day Korean. It's a comprehensive course that's divided into 90-day modules and should take a year to complete. Highlights of the course are exceptionally thorough instruction and a logical, progressive course structure. There's also the option to pay a higher price for access to a personal Korean tutor to help you along the way. Some final thoughts. Teuida is a learning app that is engaging and exciting to use. It offers a novel experience without feeling like a gimmick, which can be a hard thing to pull off. Novelty aside, the app presents a bunch of super useful language right away in an engaging manner and gets you speaking immediately. Teuida may not be the right choice for all Korean learners, as it doesn't offer explicit instruction for pronunciation or reading, and it might be overwhelming for a beginning learner. Fortunately, the introductory material and the conversation with Nancy is free to try out, and Teuida is certainly worth a try. The overall rating of Teuida is 4 out of 5 stars. The breakdown is as follows. For quality, 4.5 out of 5 stars. The design is superb and it's easy to use, but the voice recognition isn't perfect. For thoroughness, 4 out of 5 stars. It offers lots of speaking practice as advertised, but it's lacking detailed pronunciation training. For value, 3.5 out of 5 stars. There aren't a lot of similar alternatives, but there are definitely more efficient ways to get real speaking practice. If you enjoyed this review, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. And if you're looking for more information on any particular resource, be sure to check out our website, alllanguageresources.com, where we've tested out and written about hundreds of language learning resources.